They say love is strongest in the beginning, when everything feels new, and every glance makes your heart race. That's how it was with Ben and me. I was 21 when we met during my final year at university. He was already working, stable, grounded, a little shy, but so warm. The kind of man who opens car doors, remembers your coffee order, and texts to ask if you got home safe. Now, 3 years later, we live together in a small but cozy apartment in West London. From the outside, we look like a couple who made it. Shared routines, a joint Netflix account, a cat named Luna. But inside those walls, things weren't as picture perfect. Lately, Ben had been off. Started small. Less laughter. Shorter hugs. Missed dinners. First, I blamed work. His job in finance was stressful, and he often came home drained. I waited, made his favorite meals, asked how his day was. He smiled, said, "Tiring," and disappeared into his laptop. I told myself it was just a phase. Every couple goes through rough patches, right? But weeks passed, then months, and the space between us grew. We hadn't been intimate in almost 6 weeks. At first he made excuses, too tired, not feeling well, maybe tomorrow. I stopped asking after a while, afraid of the rejection. It wasn't just physical. It felt like he was slipping away, and I didn't know how to reach him. Then, Ethan moved in. Ben's best friend since childhood. Ethan had just gone through a messy breakup. His girlfriend had cheated on him, and he needed a place to crash for a while. Naturally, Ben offered our place. I was hesitant. Our relationship was already fragile. Adding someone else into the space didn't feel wise. But I didn't protest. Saying no felt selfish. Ethan was nothing like Ben. Where Ben was quiet and thoughtful, Ethan was loud, funny, and confident. He had this easy charm that made people feel seen. I noticed it the first morning when he made breakfast for all of us, whistling while flipping pancakes, laughing at his own bad jokes. First I kept my distance. But Ethan made it hard to ignore him. He'd ask how my day was, notice when I changed my hair, or compliment my cooking. Nothing inappropriate, just attentive. One evening, Ben and I tried to reconnect. We lit candles, ordered Thai food, and watched one of our old favorite films. I thought maybe, just maybe, this was our turning point. When we went to the bedroom, I was nervous, but hopeful. Kissed, slowly, gently. But as things progressed, Ben pulled away. His face turned pale. He sat at the edge of the bed, avoiding my eyes. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I don't know what's wrong with me." I touched his back, whispered, "It's okay." But it wasn't okay. Not for either of us. He got up, dressed, and said he needed air. I heard the door close, then silence. I stayed there, still in bed, staring at the ceiling. A mix of emotions swirled inside me. Confusion, rejection, and guilt. Was it me? Was I no longer desirable? Or was something deeper broken between us? The next morning, Ben left early for work. I sat at the kitchen counter, still in my robe, when Ethan walked in. Hair tousled, eyes half closed, holding a coffee mug like it was a lifeline. "Rough night?" he asked gently. I looked up. His tone wasn't mocking, it was soft, understanding. I gave a half-hearted smile. "You could say that." He didn't press. Just stood there, sipping his coffee. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Ben's lucky, you know. Patient. Kind. Most girls would have walked away by now." I laughed, but it came out more like a sigh. "I don't feel very lucky." He tilted his head like he wanted to say more but chose not to. From that moment something shifted. I wouldn't call it temptation. Not yet. But there was a new awareness between us. Unspoken, subtle. A glance that lasted a second too long. A joke that made me laugh a little harder than it should have. I still loved Ben. I wasn't looking to betray him. I was just tired of feeling invisible. And Ethan. He saw me, even if I didn't want him to. The morning after, I tried to forget the look Ethan gave me in the kitchen. The way his words had lingered like heat on my skin. I told myself I was overthinking it. That it was nothing. that I was still committed to Ben, even if we were struggling. But the truth was harder to swallow. Ben left earlier and came home later. His eyes were always on his phone or laptop. We barely spoke outside of, "What should we have for dinner?" and "Did you feed the cat?" At night, we lay next to each other but might as well have been miles apart. Ethan, on the other hand, was always around. He cooked. He cleaned. He cracked jokes and played music in the kitchen while I worked. He'd peek into the living room and ask if I wanted tea. Sometimes he brought it without asking. He never pushed. He just existed, thoughtfully, kindly. And I started noticing things. Like how he remembered my favorite tea without me ever saying it. How he'd glance at me when I laughed. How he always seemed to know when I needed someone to ask, "Are you okay?" I wasn't. And he knew it. One Friday night, a storm rolled in, loud, dramatic, and unexpected. Ben messaged that he'd be staying late at the office for a deadline. I was curled up on the couch, scrolling aimlessly, when Ethan came in holding a bottle of red wine. "Perfect weather for a movie," he said, flashing that easy smile. I hesitated, then nodded. Why not? We sat on opposite ends of the couch. First, the movie played, but I don't remember a second of it. What I do remember is how our conversation slowly moved from casual to deep. We talked about heartbreak, about how love can fade without either person noticing, about feeling lonely even when you're with someone. He asked gently, "Do you feel alone with Ben?" I didn't answer right away. I couldn't lie. "Yes," I whispered. There was a long pause. "I see you, Sophie," he said softly. "More than he does." Those words felt dangerous. But they also felt true. The room felt smaller, warmer, closer. Somewhere between the storm and the silence, Ethan moved closer. Not much. Just enough to feel the weight of his presence beside me. Our shoulders touched. I didn't move away. He looked at me like I was someone worth looking at. Not through me. Not past me. Me. And then it happened. Kiss. Low. Hesitant. I didn't know who moved first. Maybe we both did. Maybe it had been coming for a while, like thunder waiting behind the clouds. It lasted only a few seconds, but it said everything. I pulled back, breath shaky. "We can't do this," I said, standing up. Ethan nodded slowly. "I know." I walked to my room and closed the door. My heart was racing, my mind screaming. But a part of me, one I didn't want to admit existed, felt seen, wanted. The next day we acted like nothing happened. Ben came home, kissed me on the cheek like always, and asked if we wanted pizza. Said yes. Ethan said nothing. Over the next week, things became strange. Ethan and I didn't talk much when Ben was around. But when we were alone, the air between us pulsed with something unspoken. He started avoiding long eye contact. He'd walk into a room, see me, and then walk out again. Think he was ashamed. Maybe I was too. But that didn't stop the thoughts. Late at night, when Ben was asleep beside me, I'd think about Ethan. Not in a lustful way. More in a way that made me question everything I thought I knew about love. Was it passion that I missed? Or simply being noticed? Then came the second kiss. It wasn't planned. We were in the kitchen again. Another quiet evening, another glass of wine. I leaned on the counter. He walked past me, brushing my arm. Our eyes locked. And it happened again. Longer this time. More certain. More dangerous. This time I didn't pull away first. But I did walk away second. I didn't sleep that night. My heart was torn in two, between guilt and desire, loyalty and the ache of being unfulfilled. Ethan texted me the next day. "We need to talk. Before this gets worse." But it was already worse. I'd crossed a line. And lines, once crossed, are never invisible again. Days passed, but time didn't soften the guilt. Sharpened it. Ben still had no idea. He walked around the apartment like everything was fine, kissing my forehead in the mornings, making casual conversation over dinner. He even suggested we take a weekend trip. "Just us," he said. "Like old times." I agreed too quickly. like a woman desperate to rewrite something that had already been written in ink. Before we left, I got a message from Ethan. We should clear the air. This isn't sustainable. I didn't reply. Because I already knew. We had crossed a boundary that couldn't be uncrossed, and no conversation could fix it. All I could do now was try to save what I still had with Ben. If there was anything left to save. We rented a small cottage by the coast. Quiet. Peaceful. No distractions. For the first time in months, Ben seemed like himself again. Less tense, more present. He laughed easily, teased me about my overpacked suitcase, and held my hand as we walked along the beach. That night something shifted. We lit a fire. Talked for hours. About us. About how we'd grown apart and how we both felt it but didn't know how to say it. There were no tears, just honesty. And then, intimacy. No tension. No awkwardness. This time Ben didn't pull away. Neither did I. I should have felt healed. Or hopeful. Instead I felt guilty. Because I knew I wasn't all there. Not fully. A part of me was still haunted by that kiss in the kitchen. And the second one that followed. And the knowledge that I hadn't told him. We returned home Sunday night. Ethan wasn't there. Just a note on the counter. I moved out. I'm sorry. No name. Just that. Ben read it and raised an eyebrow. He didn't say anything to you? I shook my head. Like, no. But I could tell he sensed something. The way he looked at me lingered longer than usual. The next morning it happened. Ben walked into the room holding Ethan's denim jacket. Found this in your wardrobe, he said. His voice even but his eyes not. Froze. I opened my mouth but nothing came out. Not at first. Then it did, all of it. The storm. The wine. A kiss. And the second one. The silence afterward. The guilt. I didn't try to excuse it. I just told the truth. Ben didn't shout. He didn't cry. He didn't slam any doors. He just stared at me. And then he walked out. He didn't take anything with him. Not even his phone. Waited. Minutes turned into hours. Then a full day. Texted. Nothing. Ethan didn't answer either. It was like both men had vanished, leaving only me and my choices. The following week was quiet. Too quiet. Luna, our cat, would sit by the door like she expected someone to come back. I envied her hope. I finally got a text from Ben. I just need time. I don't hate you. But I can't look at you right now. And that hurt more than yelling ever could. Because in those words, I saw the love he still had for me, and the pain I caused by breaking it. I never spoke to Ethan again. Maybe he thought it best to disappear. Maybe he hated himself for what we did. Or maybe he just couldn't face what we'd become when the lines blurred. Weeks passed. I went back to work. Smiled at the right moments. Laughed when expected. But inside I was carrying something heavier than shame. Regret. Regret not for what I felt, but for how I acted on it. 'Cause the truth is, I didn't stop loving Ben. I just stopped believing I mattered to him. And someone else stepped into that space. I now know that betrayal isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with lipstick on collars or lies in text messages. Sometimes it's quiet. It begins with a glance. Kind word. A moment of weakness wrapped in attention. It happens in the space between what we need and what we're missing. And it leaves behind a silence that no apology can fill. I don't know if Ben will ever come back. I don't expect him to. But I hope one day he knows. I never meant to lose him. I just didn't know how to hold on without losing myself. And that's the hardest part about love. It asks you to stay even when everything inside you is drifting.